Moreover, there will very likely be some softening of labor market conditions. While higher interest rates, slower growth, and softer labor market conditions will bring down inflation, they will also bring some pain to households and businesses.
The job market is cooling off, and unrelenting inflation is taking a toll, leaving more Americans living paycheck to paycheck. As of August, a recent Lending Club report indicated that 60% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck after experiencing 40-year high record inflation. Even high-income earners pulling in over six figures are feeling the strain, with 45% reported to currently be living paycheck to paycheck. And Lending Club's financial health officer said more consumers living paycheck to paycheck indicates that many are continuing to lose their financial stability. If this speaks to you, I urge you to continue watching this video for further updates and information that could potentially be financially life-saving for you and your family. So, a separate report by Bank of America found that 71% of workers feel their pay isn't keeping up with the cost of living, which is bringing the number of people who feel financially secure to a 5-year low. And many Americans are dipping into their cash reserves, and nearly half are falling deeper into debt, charging more and more on credit cards at higher APR interest rates. I mean, let's be honest. Most Americans and American families didn't have much in savings or cash reserves as it is. Despite what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell may say about Americans being flush with cash in their savings accounts from old stimulus checks and Goldman Sachs claiming household balance sheets are strong. This is just not the case for most, as money is hard to come by and expenses continue to rise. Thanks, inflation. But there are also a large group of American families who just lack financial education, financial discipline, and continue to fall victim to advertising and overspending to try to keep up a look or appearance, to keep up with the Joneses, or just to stunt on the gram for clout. And as a result, those struggling to afford their day-to-day lifestyles tend to rely more on credit cards and carry a higher monthly balance, making them financially vulnerable to life's unexpected forks in the road. With the average American family unable to cover the cost and expense of a $500 emergency, and poorer middle class and lower society level income bracket earners nearing poverty levels, savings accounts holding less than $2,000 in the bank. So it's no secret that prices have been increasing for everyday Americans, and not only in the goods and services they purchase, but also in the interest rates that they are paying to fund and ultimately, sad to say, finance their lives. And this can have detrimental consequences for someone who pays the minimum amount on their credit cards every month. Not to mention the psychological and mental health effects that can be daunting, draining, and even depressing. So the pain is only going to get worse as the Federal Reserve hiked its target federal funds rate by 0.75 percentage points for the third time in a row to attempt to calm runaway inflation. And the central bank has warned even more increases are coming until inflation shows clear signs of a pullback. So this means if you're struggling now to make ends meet, if you're one paycheck away from being homeless, if you have no money in savings and no financial and wealth building prospects on the horizon, then you and your family are severely at risk. And the consequences for the Fed not bringing inflation under control could be devastating for many American families down on cash reserves, down on cash in the bank, little to no savings, and reliant upon one single point of failure: their jobs, their weekly or bi-weekly paychecks, because unemployment could spiral with the lowest earners sustaining the biggest impact. So this is very important, and why we must understand and prepare for the Federal Reserve, and why Jerome Powell won't be so quick to ease up on its fight against inflation, and how one false move can make things go wrong. Very wrong. U.S. Chief Economist Joseph Brusuelas said that the Federal Reserve, they have to stick the landing. Now, I don't think of Jerome Powell as much of a gymnast, but let's hear him out. Think of the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell as a gymnast sprinting across the mat, spiraling, turning, churning, then twisting through the air and trying to make sure he still lands perfectly on his feet. That's, metaphorically speaking, the U.S. monetary policy in this era of rapid inflation, swooning economic growth, and heightened fears over what could go wrong, and Jerome Powell is that gymnast, standing on the economic version of an Olympic mat and having to make sure everything goes just right. Because if things go wrong, they could go very, very wrong. It is the lower end of the economic ladder that is most at risk, and their families are on the line. These low income and soon to be wiped out lower middle class American families are going to bear the burden if the Fed doesn't stick the landing correctly. They will lose their jobs and their spending will go down, and they will have to draw on savings and 401k retirement funds to make ends meet. That is if they even have any to fall back on. Consumers are already pressured now by consistently rising prices, so they are dipping into savings to cover costs for basics, needs, and necessities. Having to make tough decisions and weighing options of either paying for food or paying for rent and potentially going hungry, becoming homeless, and being forced to live in their car, or worse, both. Prices for everyday items have been surging at an extraordinary rate. Eggs, up 40% from a year ago. Butter and margarine, up 30%. Gasoline, even with a 10.5% decline this month, was still more than 25% higher than it was a year ago. And these struggling families aren't making 25% more money either, are they? Comment below and let me know. Economist Bruce Willis said a worst-case scenario would send the unemployment rate through the roof, and 3.5 million jobs would be lost, as companies have to lay off workers to deal with the economic declaration of surging costs that could come along with even higher inflation. Let's be honest, guys, we are already in a recession, despite any sort of attempt to redefine the principles in which a recession is measured. So the question is, how much worse can it end up? How much more pain can your family take and still survive? So the Fed can't just keep raising rates as the economy continues to weaken. Jerome Powell must manage to hike until it reaches an equilibrium where it slows down the economy enough to correct the multifaceted supply and demand mismatches in a way that doesn't cause deeper and unnecessary pain that, to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure how much more pain we can all take. So as of right now, according to the Fed's most recent outlook, policymakers expect to keep going into 2023 with benchmark rates about 1.5 percentage points higher than the level that we are currently at now. But if the Fed overdoes it, if they overcook it, we can expect a much deeper recession with higher unemployment. The upcoming Consumer Price Index report is expected to show that the cost of living has continued to climb in September. And the UN Conference on Trade and Development warned that the current course of action is hurting vulnerable people everywhere. But the data suggests that the Fed still has work to do. So all I can say is brace yourselves, folks. The Bureau of Labor Statistics calculations is showing CPI data of another 0.5% gain, excluding food and energy, and headline CPI is projecting to rise to 8.2%. So the worst part about this whole thing is that there are a cluster of Americans who had previously retired, and now inflation has them counting pennies and considering and or forcing them back to work just to make ends meet. If Jerome Powell and the Fed can't get this under control, they will not be immune to the havoc-wreaking inflation, nor the mass layoffs from a wave of unemployment of epic proportions. So listen up. Warning. Tell your family to prepare. For more on what to expect from the future of the U.S. economy and how you can prepare to survive this mess and come out the other side thriving and with wealth and not just carrying more debt, check out this video right here and watch this one too. You guys take care. Be safe. I'll see you real soon. Bye.